We're live. Hey, Cyber. Uh, Cyber. Cyber says before we even get started, the answer is definitely yes. Okay, I'm just opening up a room on Fanbase because I said I would. Let me just do this real quick. It's good to see you, Cyber. Let me just wait for a moment while everybody else decides to get here and we'll start. All right, podcast, we'll open this one here and then we'll do this one and we'll hit create and look at that. We are there on Fanbase. Fanbase is loading. I don't know what that means necessarily. Can you hear me, Cyber? Well, seeing as I can't get into Fanbase right now. The app is apping, but that's okay. I think I put notes in the description of this video so that I could help myself to stay on track. You see that topic. That topic can be highly inflammatory, isn't it? It can be inflammatory. So is manifestation even real? Hey, the better man. Oracle Treehouse. Good, because I can't get onto Fanbase Oracle Treehouse, so I'm glad you're here. I recently came across a subreddit, Neville Critics. And what I'm going to touch on today, because a lot of people think he had a mental illness, that he was, delusional, so on and so forth. So the first thing I have listed here in my questions is manifestation even real? You see, we don't think that manifestation is real because of how it's being sold. Remember, we live in a capital society. Yeah? Capitalism. Huh? We live in a capitalistic society, which means, as Neville Goddard so aptly put it, Caesar's like this. And Caesar's ready to beat you if you don't pay him what he says he is worth. So everybody has learned how to use the law, they have, right? Everybody knows how to use the law. Well, how? Let me give a shout out to, Danielle. Let me give a shout out to a fellow Canadian, because her channel is talking about stuff like this, people in this kind of a community, and she doesn't believe in manifestation at all. And I'm like, well, that's because manifestation has been put into a little box with a nice little bow, and it's for the highest or the most desperate bidder. You see how they use the law against you? Look at polarity. In the live stream that I was listening to yesterday, Danielle played this thing where the person was saying, yeah, you have to warm up your audience. I'm like, warm up the audience? What are we dealing with, dough? Like, I don't get it. But that's what they're doing. When you are desperate, then we become desperate, meaning we don't want to deal with things anymore. We're frustrated. We're agitated. Oh, the law doesn't work. That's the first thing we say is the law doesn't work. But yet you're going to scroll somewhere and see a master class being offered. You're going to see a manifestation Bible offered, and you're going to buy it. But the law doesn't work. Well, it worked just now. It polarized you enough that you bought what it was. You see, manifestation is not something that is new. Look at the definition of a manifest. A manifest is a document that shows you what is contained within the container. Think about this for a minute. A manifest is a document that shows you, because a ship will have a manifest, an airplane will have a manifest. Why? Because you need to know what's contained within. So that is a manifest, to show you what is on the inside, right? So to manifest means you have to see the contents of your own character. Done. There's nothing else. There's no more. There's no woo-woo. There's no trickery. Manifestation happens because of law, cause and effect. Now, here's the other part that a lot of people get hung up on when they want to say, well, oh, it would have happened anyway. Well, of course it would have happened anyway. It has to happen by way of law. It doesn't happen on its own accord. Something set it in motion, and thereby it unfolded, period. But who and what set it in motion is the question. So if you have a cause, you will bring about an effect. If you have an effect, you can find the cause. So there aren't any quote unquote mysteries as far as this whole manifestation thing goes. All right. So that's the question. Is manifestation even real? Yes, it is, because it happens. You put a seed in the ground. How do I know what you planted? Because the fruit manifests. How does it manifest? Naturally, according to what you planted. That's how it manifests. So the other question is trying to keep a positive attitude. You're not going to be, yay, rainbows and butterflies 24/7, 365, 366. Who does that? Nobody. But what you do remain consistent in is in the knowing that, you know what? I have this thing here and I'm doing this. I'm accomplishing this task. Yes, I may have had a setback, but I'm going to get up and dust myself off. That's what we do. Because then now you come to the other question. Well, what action should I take? Well, the action that is most natural. What do we naturally do with seeds? Plant them. What does the brain naturally do? Think. So if you are in a position where you are constantly having the same swirling thought day in and day out with no reprieve, here's where the mental illness comes in now. Because remember that line that Neville Goddard says, you don't have to lift a finger to make it happen? He's not telling you that you don't have to do anything. He's trying to tell you you're not going to have to force it to happen. But the doors and the windows open and you just walk through and do what you need to do naturally. I will always refer to his example for when he wanted to leave Barbados. And he went up in his imagination onto the gangplank and he smelt the air and he touched things. And then he just sat there and he said every time his mind wandered, he brought it back to walking up that gangplank. So when he could actually make it up the gangplank and it felt real to him, he just stopped. And then the phone rang later. So what else was he supposed to do? Let the phone ring and not answer it? So he had to lift a finger. He had to lift his whole hand to get the receiver to say, hello. So he's not telling you that you're going to sit on your couch and do nothing. He's telling you, what is it that you want to accomplish? Because listen, you and I do this naturally, day in and day out. I've given you many examples, and let me give you another one. If you have to phone your insurance company, right? If you have to phone them, and like I did the other day, because my rate, I was like, dude, why is my rate so high? I'm like, come on, I have a clean record. What's going on here? And she says, well, you know, there really isn't anything I can do. I said, no, there isn't. She goes, well, because before I made that phone call, what did I do? I rehearsed what I wanted to say. based upon what I wanted her to do for me. At the end of the conversation, she says to me, well, you have been a loyal customer. I said, I have? And she said, yes. So I will give you the loyalty customer discount. I didn't know there was a loyalty customer discount I could have. All I knew was my rate was too high and I wanted it lower. And so in my mind, I said, I made every case as to why my rate should be lower. Do you see what I'm trying to tell you? We do these things naturally. So what Neville is telling you, the same thing for the emerald tablets, they're telling you, have a clear picture of what it is you want to create. If you don't have clarity, you have nothing. How can you recreate if the image isn't clear? Then you don't know what to do. You don't know what action to take. So it is the clarity of oneself and of your own thoughts, right? So here we are. Now, if you say, well, I want this thing, which moves us now past positive attitude to self-concept. If you get up in the morning and your first thought is, another day, God. And every time you turn around and you want to do something different with your life, you come up against this thing about how you feel about yourself. Yeah. You come up against this thing, the way you feel about yourself. Who has control over that? You and I have control over what we say to ourselves. But what do we do? Here's where the mental illness part comes in. I don't even like that word illness. It's a distorted, habitual thinking. Because we spent so much time habitually thinking the same way over and over and over again, you have to continue thinking in that way. So when I say to you, you have to change your thoughts. I tried that. What do you mean you tried changing your thoughts? You don't try to change your thought. You change the thought and maintain that changed thought. It doesn't matter how many times your brain says, no, that's not the thought I want. You consciously say, no, this is the thought we're going to be having. Here are the kinds of conversations we want to have, because what do we do naturally? We rehearse conversations naturally. So this is why when Neville Goddard is saying what he says about it taking on the tones of reality, the tones of naturalness, he's telling you, you are already doing it. I know it seems like I'm upset. No, I'm not upset. I get impassioned with these things because here we are with the key to our own freedom in our hands, but we're afraid to use it because of a bad habit that we have. And that habit that we have is our self-concept, what we believe to be true about ourselves. Listen to me. In that live stream that Danielle was hosting yesterday, people always give you their story. I don't give you my story because you don't need to know my story. Pardon me. I'm not here to soften you up with my story so that you will buy my program. I don't have a program to sell. Right? I don't. There's one thing I have to do, and that is teach you the law. And the law happens naturally. So follow your own nature. But to follow your nature, you need to know you have a nature. What is it? Because here's an example. Joseph Murphy. I forget if he was a Dr. Joseph Murphy. I knew he was a chemist. You know, the power of your subconscious mind. He was a chemist, right? And he builds compounds in the pharmacy. So you just can't get up and build a compound. What if you put these two things together and we have this combustion, you kill somebody? So he said, as a chemist, I needed to know the nature of every single product I was using. Is he using bicarbonate soda, baking soda? Well, then we know what happens with the nature of baking soda, and you put the nature of vinegar together. You know what happens with that. We get this little, science project 101, the volcano, acids and bases. So he said, I have to learn the nature of each item so that I know if somebody says, blah, 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 I feel this way. Because he knows the nature of something, he can build that formula right here because he knows the nature. So when he wrote the book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, he's saying to you, in order to create change in your life, you must know your own nature. And the nature of man and woman is exactly the same. We are all creatures of habit. We all live from our memories. We all ruminate. You know how we say misery loves company, because we like to talk about our story, right? And we all want creature comforts. That's the nature of man. But the nature of man follows the principles of creation: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, causation, and gender. They follow that. They don't deviate from it. So you first understand your own nature as a human. You understand that we have a saying, desperate times call for desperate measures. Well, it couldn't call for anything else. So when you are saying to yourself, I want to change something about my life, I'm so desperate to change. Wait, what? Where are you coming from? Are you coming from a place of desperation, or are you coming from a place of, you know what? I think it's time to change. Where are you coming from? Because if you're coming from a place of sheer raw desperation, as within, so without, now we create more desperate situations. So know your nature and know the law, because the law governs nature, all natures, which is your character, what you believe of yourself. So it's not that Neville Goddard was mentally ill. You see, a lot of it may also be cultural, because I know growing up in Barbados, we have a saying, you don't suffer fools. I didn't necessarily grow up around people who complained a lot, because that was not in my house. My grandfather did not complain. He worked. When his house was being eaten by termites and people would make fun of his house, he didn't cry in the corner, because there really wasn't a corner left. Right? That's not what he did. Nah. You see the skills he learned from the age of 8, cutting sugar cane and picking cotton? He said, how can I maximize this? And he became the best at cutting sugar cane and picking cotton. Oh, yeah. And so that's what he became really good at. So much so that his boss on the plantation said, well, here's a very strong worker. Let me recommend him to go overseas to do what? Cut sugar cane and pick cotton, but be paid in what? US dollars. Did my grandfather have to work? Yeah, dang right he did. But if you look at it, he didn't win the lottery. I didn't think we had lottery in Barbados at that time. I don't think we did. But it was nothing like that. But what I learned from him was, if you are pointed in the direction of change, change has no option but to find you. And what direction of change are you looking at? So this is all Neville Goddard is telling you. Put yourself in that position that you want to be in, because you're going to do it mentally anyway. You know somebody's going to gossip about you. We all have one of those or a few of those in our family, don't we? You know they're going to have something to say. Well, how would you give a rebuttal? And that's how you build that. And you build it and you talk it out every single day in your head. Do you know why? Because the more you do that, now, where are you pointed? In the direction of your success. That's all you're doing. You're not getting up and pretending. You don't fake it. That's not what we do. We don't fake things. Right? Oh, yeah, darling, it is very good to see you. Happy New Year. It's been a while. It's been a long while. So what he's telling you is we do these things naturally. We talk to ourselves naturally. Why? Because man has been given 2 gifts. The gift of speech and thought. So we think naturally and we speak naturally. So what do you want to think about? Because it really is easy to think about bad things all day. But then how can you complain that bad things are happening when you are entertaining? So now here's the other thing that people in that manifestation community say. They say, well, when your manifestation doesn't work out, they tell you it's your fault. You see, that's the problem when we blame. There is no blame. You are learning your nature. You are learning how to use your nature deliberately instead of randomly and in the dark. Because we can't be random. We have habits. Is this making sense to you today? So we hear Neville Goddard say to persist until we get what we want. What does persistence look like? You and I are persistently doing something day in and day out. So what is the difference between persistently thinking the worst of yourself or persistently thinking better of yourself? Those are the two options, really. So what are you going to persist in? You see, somebody said to me, it doesn't matter what I do, my life doesn't change, it's still shit. And I'm like, but you're willing to get up every day and call it shit. You're not willing to change that. This is what I'm trying to get a hold of you and tell you. It's not that he's crazy. It's not that you don't know what you're doing. That's not it. It's just that we've been living in such a fashion that we're always being told what to do. So that now when you have the opportunity to think for yourself, you're like, what? Think for myself? Well, that's scary. I don't know how to do that. Well, nobody knew how to think for themselves, but we learn. That's the whole point. So you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let me get on this one. Somebody said, well, how can I force the 3D to conform? How do I make it go my way? It is the persistent thought. It is the persistent thing. It is the habit that you are doing day in and day out. How are you going to sit here and say, oh my God, I have no money, but you smoke and you drink? You don't have money, but you don't ever go without those things. So you are making the 3D conform by way of your habit. So all he's saying to you is set a better habit, really and truly in layman's terms. But you have to understand sometimes the verbosity of Bajans or Barbadians, highly educated people. So we speak the Queen's English, and not just the Queen's English, but Shakespearean. And so when he says to you, or when Alan Watts says to you, as a man thinketh, therefore he is, what are you thinking about all day long? You have to see the evidence of your thoughts. You must. Because it is the same as the little lowly seed that you plant in the ground. You have to see the evidence of what you've planted. Whether you planted it in the dirt or you planted it in the recesses of your mind, you have to see the evidence of what you have done, aka manifest. So manifestation is not this, ooh, oh, it's magic. Oh. There's a science to it, though. The science is being deliberate. What are you thinking? How does it make you feel when you think it? You know, if you have a bad memory, why do I always go to that side, Angela? Why do I always pick the bad side? Because that's the side we think of the most. Look at humanity. You did this to me. That's the side. Right, Cyber? Cyber, this is what I'm saying. Cyber, did you see Cyber's comment? Cyber says, so if the law works, why don't I have 10 million subscribers? Because I'm planting very deliberate seeds. I'm planting very deliberate seeds. Those who have ears to hear, let them hear. So whoever this message is, 9 of us here in this space at the moment. So whoever have ears to hear and they want to hear this message because they're seeking it, they will hear it. But you see, here's the nature of humanity. We want to be entertained. We want to feel good. But I'm not necessarily here to make you feel good. I'm here to teach you how to make yourself feel good. When do you throw in the towel? You don't throw in the towel. You look at your quote unquote mistake and you say, wait a minute, what did I do there? Where was I coming from? Was I desperate? Was I clear? And you examine the self always. Not judge it, but examine the self. And so now you can say, okay. And that's why I like getting out my blank piece of paper and my trusty pencil, and I draw that line across the page and down like that, because that's the law. I don't even see it, but we can. Hey, there it is. This is the law of polarity. There are two things. They look like they're opposites, but they're not. So if you say, "Oh my God, I'm broke. I'm tired of being broke." This was a conversation I spent the whole week. I have this conversation with somebody online. Nothing is changing, and I'm like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" This is why sometimes it helps when you write things down, so you can get a better picture of what you're actually doing, so you can begin to see, manifest, so you can see what's inside your mind. If you look at it and go, "Okay, where am I and what am I doing?" And you begin to write those things down. Well, I'm here right now. You know what? I'm dissatisfied with this. I'm dissatisfied with this. Blah, 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 blah. It's on the page. Now when you read that, you say, okay, that's where I'm at and that's what I'm doing. So where do I want to be and what do I want to be doing? Now that same pencil and paper on the other side, you write down, you know what? What would it be like if, and you start writing, okay, so if I had this, I'd be doing this. I'd be living this kind of way. I'd be getting my coffee here. I'd be calling this person. I'd be going to the library, blah, 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 blah. And you start to write down all the things that you would be doing if you were in your ideal situation. Why? Because when you remove your attention from the parts that are heavy and drag you down, you're going to see a pathway open up. Oh my God, wait. You will see a pathway open up. I have a quote for that. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find that quote. Neville Goddard says, if you can imagine the end, knowing all things are possible to imagination, and remain faithful to that assumption that all things are possible to imagination, as though it were true, imagination will harden into fact. That's one of the quotes. Where is the other? No, that's not one of them. You know, we have a saying for it, where there's a will, there's a way, right? Where there is a will, there is a way. How? What's your will? Your will is your desire. So polarity, you are pointing yourself in the direction of where you say you want to be. That opportunities will open up for you to be there. But what we do to ourselves is we cut off those opportunities because we refuse to relinquish the habitual place of woe is me. But here's the beautiful part of that. A habit is easily formed. Why? How? It is a thought, word, or action that you do the same way every time. All you have to do is decide which thing you're going to do and get up and do it every opportunity you get, day in and day out. Do it the same time every day, the same way. Don't deviate from it. And before you know it, what are scientists telling us? 21 days and you have a habit, 90 days you have a lifestyle. So if your predominant habit is one of complaining, get up and find one thing that is good and make your new habit of always looking for the good. If you always get up and look for the good, okay, so you don't see anything good for 2 days. Well, fine, it doesn't work. You should stop. That would be sarcasm, by the way. But that's not what we do. We didn't become masters of habit by giving up the second day or the third day. We did that thing and we did that thing and we did that thing until it took root and formed a new neural pathway in our brains. That's what we did. Where is it? I know exactly the quote I want to read to you. I know it. One moment, please. Hey, itty bitty. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're such a good boy. Did I like lose it? No, I have it right here. It's coming. I haven't forgotten you because I have it underlined. I just didn't. Okay. This is from, I'm reading this book by David Icke. There's a theoretical physicist called Werner Karl Heisenberg. He says, a path comes into existence only when you observe it. A path comes into existence only when you observe it. Where there is a will, there is a way. What is he saying there? A path comes into existence only when you observe it. If you are looking in the direction of woe is me, a pathway opens up to more of woe is me. He's a theoretical physicist, whatever that is. But he's going to tell you it is the observer who interprets what they see. It's the observer. So if you're the observer, you are also the participant. And how do we participate? Let me deviate a little bit here. I'm coming for the SP community. You know, it's a big part of the Neville Goddard community. I'm trying to find which lecture it is. There, Neville Goddard says, okay, so your current boyfriend or girlfriend dumped you. Let us do what we need to do to get him back. I'm trying to find the lecture because I do know there's one lecture where Neville says, well, he was married. They were separated, not divorced, but he met a woman that he fell in love with, that he wanted to marry. So he lay in his bed, I forget, it was 7 nights. And he envisioned she was in her bed, he was in his, and they were happy, happily married. That's what he saw. He did not wish for a text. He did not cry and bemoan being blocked on different social media sites. He did not do that. Nowhere did Neville Goddard say to be desperate. What did he say? He said, know what it is that you want. But now here's the thing. When you know what you want, it should uplift you when you think about it. It should uplift you when you think about it. Versus thinking about it, you're like, oh, the pain, oh, me heart, you know. If you look around I'm not, listen, the amount of times I see that question, how do I get her back? How do I get him back? And I'm like, wait a minute. What's important here? Yes, we all want companionship. But at what cost sometimes? Right? Neville spent a lot of time teaching about your concept of yourself. Who do you say that you are? Are you valuable? Are you worthwhile? That's what he's asking you. Do you know that that's who and what you are? And if you know that that's who and what you are, do you think the world can withhold anything from you? It cannot, because so long as you can imagine it, you have just created it. So for people who want to say, well, oh, the manifestation community is this, oh, the manifestation community is that. You know, I am not always right. I'm not. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not always right. What I do know, though, that scripture comes to life very quickly. My people perish for lack of knowledge. If we don't know that a lot of work has gone into the usurping of your self-concept. I love the way David Icke explains it. Whether you like him or you don't, I always look for the law where I look for it. It's not about if I like him or if I don't like him or if you like him or if you don't like him. All I'm saying to you is I look for the law. And so when he says, like, we're in these bubbles, right? And we can only see through the bubble because we make the bubble. The bubble is made because of our beliefs, things that we've learned and heard about ourselves. And the reason why we hold on to those things that we see and feel to be true about ourselves is only because of habit. It is only a habit that you hold on to them. They're not actually true. It's just that you've been doing it for so long that you've been doing it for so long. That's it. So to break yourself out of the cycle, because you're going to have to, it's the law of rhythm. You see, a habit follows the law of rhythm, an ebb and a flow. It's always there. It's a cycle. It is predictable. And so in order, because we can't escape the law of rhythm, so what do? Form a new habit. So that becomes your rhythm, because you always have to be in a rhythm. So you form a new habit. That's what we do. We don't complain. And here's the thing. When I say we don't complain, I'm not saying we don't complain because nobody cares, or I'm saying don't complain in the aspect of now that becomes who you are, that you just complain. You see, there's another quote here that says, from his book, The Answer, it says, search for solutions and you will see the complexity. Identify the cause and you will see the simplicity. So you see, we are, and I said this, it's in our resumes, we're problem solvers. No thanks, I am not a problem solver. I'll create problems. This is the attitude you should have. Why? Don't go out trying to solve problems. Create the desire, that thing that you're doing. Create it, as opposed to, oh, I should fix that. No, create instead of. And here's the thing: in order to create, you can't get away from the law of polarity. You must always acknowledge. You have to acknowledge where you are and what you're doing. That's the part of the mental issues that a lot of people in this community have. We don't want to acknowledge our own habits. We always want the other person to change. The other person is just living in a state. You're living in a state. I'm living in a state. We're all living in states. And that's the thing. We've been taught, you don't look the same, so we can't possibly be the same. You don't worship the same way, so we can't possibly be the same. You're not the same gender as me, so you can't possibly be the same. Do you see what's happening? And all of those things serve to put us behind a wall every single time. So that when you want to say, well, I want to create, you're coming up against a wall of beliefs that you've had sitting there for so long, and nobody cares. That's what we've done to ourselves. But we've done it to ourselves from a place of not knowing. And that's why it was important that nobody know these laws. That's why it's important that humanity not know them. Because think about it, if you knew that, I just have to have a clear image, and then whatever steps I need to take are going to unfold for me, that's what I need to do. But what have we been taught? Girl, if you don't have a plan, nobody's telling you not to have a plan. This is what the law of polarity is for. Where are you now and what are you doing? What do you want? And what do you want to be doing? That's your plan. Because then you see all the things that, okay, that aligns, this aligns. Well, that means I have to get up every morning at this time. Done. That means I got to do this. Done. And you start now to see how it unfolds. Next thing you know, your phone rings, somebody calling you, hey, I'd like to collaborate, blah, blah, blah. So it's not that Neville is nuts. It's not that he is delusional. It's that we are impatient as people. Look at our nature. We want it and we want it now. What do you want? When do you want it? No. You know, that's what we want. We want it and we want it now. Nobody's telling you that you can't have it now. right? But if you want it now, yet you contradict yourself and you say, well, that might not be possible. How can it be now when you are in conflict with self? And we've been taught for so long to chase and to pursue and to be successful. My success is not your success. Having 8 people in this space to me is a success. I don't know how many people are going to catch the replay. I have no idea. I don't. You know what I mean? This is why you've got to get up and do the things. Right? I know, right? It's like this. There's GoFundMes. There's so many things that people can do. You want to have a music career? You got places like Fanbase. You got places like TikTok. You got Instagram. You got Facebook. You got Twitter. You got Threads. You got Twitch. You got Discord. All of these places. And listen, all you got to do is make good music. Oh, Angela, this is how I know you're disillusional. Did you just agree? Did you just agree? Oh, wait, you know what? I love you, itty bitty, I do. Look, there is a way. There's a way. I narrate books. Period. It's not, I'm not getting up and fretting about who likes it and who doesn't like it. Get up and do the thing that you love doing. And because you are pointed in that direction of doing what you love, then different opportunities present themselves. But if you say, fine, I'm not going to do it anymore because there's no money in it. Nobody cares what I'm doing anyway. What happens? You close every door that could possibly open. So again, it's not that he was crazy. No, he had more patience than we do now. What did they tell us? 8 seconds? That's how long we can last for. I look at my analytics. And if I'm not having a drag down out brawl in the street, cussing somebody out and being derogatory, you see what I'm saying? That's the nature. That's the polarizing nature of humanity. So if you know your nature, how can you polarize yourself to bring about your best results? See, y'all think I'm talking to you. I only see my face reflected at me. So I'm talking to me. Don't think that I get on here and I know everything and I'm whatever holier than thou. That's not it. I'm telling you, you are ruled by habits that are governed by law. Habits are part of our nature. If you learn your nature and the laws that govern them, there is nothing that you cannot do. But because we don't know the laws and we don't know our nature, we suffer needlessly. That is what I'm saying to us at this moment. You know, what's that? What you believe, you see. And what you see, you experience. That's another David Icke quote. You know, it's rather interesting because, you know, we have the saying, seeing is believing. But in actuality, believing is seeing. You have to believe it in order to see it. You know what I'm saying to you? So let us not throw out the baby with the bathwater and say, well, no, this doesn't work. Manifesting is not, hey, Shea Butter. Manifesting is not this thing that only a few select people can do. Manifesting is what we all do. And if you could see the larger picture, come a little closer, let me tell you. because I'm so dramatic. But wait, let me sip some water first, you know. You see, how it works is this. The law of mentalism, right? We get this thing in our mind. Something is projected, law of gender, is a thought is projected at you in your mind. And as an individual, you take it and you go, oh my God. And you start to, depending on how emotionally invested you are, how have you been polarized by that thing? You know, if it is like super polarizing, here's something, for instance, I just heard about this Simone Biles and her husband. And he's talking about he didn't know who she was and blah, 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 and that he's the catch and blah, blah, blah. Now, allegedly, women are up in arms about this. He should know his place, blah, 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 blah. We know who she is. And you see how polarizing that was? Mm-hmm. See? So now, what does that do if you're single? It makes you think you shouldn't trust men or trust women. This is what it makes you think about, right? That same, what's it? Is it Shannon Sharp? Is it? The day of his wedding, he called it off because she didn't sign the prenuptial agreement. I caught snatches of these things because people say them to me all the time. And I'm like, well, that's polarizing. And I'm thinking to myself, but you took it that far? If it wasn't signed in the first 4 weeks that you presented it, that was your cue. But you paid for a wedding? You had a point to prove here. And so you see, it's polarizing. So now what does that make you feel about relationships? So what I'm saying to you is there's certain things, right? And I'm going to say this. If you worship a God and your God says to you, go and burn this place down, and you say, yes, I'll go. Well, you and your God need to be questioned. Well, why? Because all life is valuable. Yes, even those who should be beneath the prison. All life is valuable. Why? Well, let me read it to you. And I'll tell you why. And in the degree that man realizes the existence of the indwelling spirit within his being, so will he rise in the spiritual scale of life. This is what spiritual development means. The recognition, realization, and manifestation of the spirit within us. The spirit is not in some, because the all is in all. So no, I'm not better than you. You're not better than me. The same spirit that has its essence throughout the entire, I don't know, universe, I want to say, I don't know. I don't know how big it is. I just know it's far greater than I can think it is, because the human mind can't fathom that. It is formless and shapeless, but yet it is within each and every one of us. So that's the part right there. If we would start there, there's greatness in me? Yes, there is. I wonder what that's like. Well, then learn yourself. So that when you start to learn yourself, as my grandfather always said, don't let a dollar make you a fool. Don't let a dollar make you a fool. As I now proceed to tell you, I have my Oracle cards coming out soon. They're at the press at the moment, so you can pre-order them. The link is in my LINKTREE below in my Patreon store. The reason I say that to you is I don't normally have things for sale. I'm very specific about things. The Oracle cards strictly teach you the law and how to apply it on a daily basis. Yep, it's not there to tell you your future. It's not there to tell you, oh my God, the Three of Cups is inverted. What does that mean? What? The law is not up for interpretation. The law is what it is. So now that you've learned the law, that is your foundation. Now you can build anything from there. But you got to learn the law. You have to learn them. And then after you've learned the law, you will see yourself. And when you see yourself, you'll see your nature. And you'll say, oh, okay, well, I'm good at this. I can apply this way. And you begin to see who you are and what you are. Because what? The recognition, realization, and manifestation of the spirit within us. That's what we do. We constantly show the spirit within. We show it to the outside world. So, don't look at Neville and say he was full of hogwash or whatever the case may be. You have to understand, Neville grew up in Barbados. I can speak to this because I grew up in Barbados. I was born there just like he was. And so I know what it's like, the difference between, he didn't come out of a wealthy family according to the rest of the world's standards, but according to a Black Caribbean, he was, because he had land and he had a farm. Whereas with most of the Black people in Barbados, the land that you had was, like my mother still lives on a tenantry. It's owned by the plantation. So he didn't have that. We did though, right? My grandfather bought his land from the plantation owner because the plantation owner liked his work ethic, so he sold it to him. That's how he got his, right? So you can see the difference there between white Barbadian and Black Barbadian. I'm not making it about color, but what I'm trying to tell you is this. Neville Goddard grew up in a third world country. But whose grocery store did I shop at? Goddard's supermarket. That's where we did our grocery shopping when I was growing up. Goddard's supermarket. And now they are Caribbean wide. They may not have the name Goddard supermarket, but if you say the name Goddard, everybody knows who you're talking about in Barbados. Everybody knows who you're talking about in the entire region. How is that? And he's telling you he came from nothing and he applied these laws. They didn't have money. So it's not that he had a silver spoon. He didn't. I didn't have a silver spoon either. But I'll tell you what we did have. We had chickens. We had fresh produce because we had plenty of fruit trees. We didn't have anything to worry or fret or compete over. We shared and we were part of a community. That's what I remember, right? But now what's happened to us? Look at what has happened to us. You're told, report your neighbor. For what? That's what we're told. We're told to spy on each other. We're not told to have community anymore. You see, why am I telling you all of this? Because sooner rather than later, you will discover that there's a spirit within you. And in order for you to know what is in you, you have to see the evidence of it. Which means you have to do something with your body. If you say, I want to create this, well, get out your pencil and paper. You're not writing it down because scripting is magical. You're writing it down because you can see it. And when you see it, you're like, oh yeah, that's more clear. Some people have to draw it out. Do you know what I mean? But when you look at it on the paper, you say, okay. But without you breathing life into it, it doesn't matter if you write it down or not. You're the one who has to breathe life into it. And that is the part that we don't want to accept. Because habitually, we've always given that authority over to someone else to make our decisions for us, to tell us what we're good at, what we're not good at. We've always left that up to somebody else. There is no one else. There's just you. So when you get a hold of the fact that, well, how do you get a hold of that fact? Well, it says the recognition, realization, and manifestation of the spirit within us. That is what spiritual development means. To the degree that man realizes the existence of the indwelling spirit within his being, so will he rise in the spiritual scale of life. So how do you do it? Well, you can't force it. It's nothing to force. But there is a feeling, though. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you put your hand on your chest You can feel your heart beating, can't you? That's the only reason you listen. 2 reasons you know that you're alive. You can feel your heart beating, and you can't feel your heart beating. Yeah, if you put your hand on your chest, you can feel your heart beating. You can't feel your heart beating otherwise. You can't feel it. If you're running, yeah, it'll pound in your chest and you hear it in your ears, and you'll know. So then, what do? You have to feel now. Just sit there and breathe, and you will discover the thing that is within you. It's the thing. You see, we get, when your stomach growls and you're hungry, that's your body. Right? And then when you say, I feel like chicken tonight, you say that. That's a habit because you've had chicken. But what if you're vegan? Now you say, I want something that tastes like chicken but isn't. That's a habit now. But where's that part of you that's not a habit? That's the part. You see, because when you discover that part about yourself, you'll understand what Neville is saying. It's just that he spoke from a place of experience. And because people haven't yet had those kinds of experiences, his experiences are unique unto him. You don't know what your experience is because you're busy cussing him out and talking about he was insane. Really? You don't look at what he did. Look at his mind. Where was he focused? Always for the betterment of people is where he was focused. Oh, but Angela, those were different times. The nature of man hasn't changed since Neville Goddard left the planet. The nature of man is still the same. So we are still the same, creatures of habit. And what he's telling you is to resist the urge to go back to being the old you. If the old you always complained, find something to be pleased about. Listen, if you can go sit on the potty, if you're eating, I'm sorry. If you can sit on the potty and you don't have to have an enema, you don't have to have a colostomy bag, and your body functions, that's thumbs up. Now, if you have those things, well, you know how inconvenient that is and how it's not cool, right? You know. Find the simplest of things. If you don't have to wear glasses so you can find the simplest of things to be pleased about. Because the more you find simple things to be pleased about, the more things you will find to be pleased about. That is how it naturally happens. It can't happen any other way. The thing that happens by way of the nature of it is natural. Like an acorn naturally becomes an oak tree. Naturally, it can't become corn. So you and I function naturally by way of our nature. Learn your nature. I told you what it is. We like to feel good. We like our creature comforts. We don't want to have to worry, right? That's your nature. We learn from our memories. We live from our memories. That's your nature. You're always pulling from your memories. So if you're going to have an inner conversation, pick a memory that feels good to you because it is your nature. It's just what we do naturally. That's why he tells you when you imagine a scene, you pick the thing that's most natural to you. I wouldn't call Justin Trudeau and say anything to him. That would not be natural to me. Would I call my mother? Yes. Would I hug my chicken? Yes. That's natural to me. So that's what I'm saying. What would you do naturally? That's why we can say, well, that would have happened anyway. Because it always is going to happen naturally by way of its own nature. As within, so without is how it always has to happen. Are there any questions? Because I know that seemed like a lot, but I know it seemed like a lot, but really and truly, it wasn't. We're just at an hour. And if you have been, quote unquote, trying to manifest something, we don't try. In the words of Yoda, we do or we do not, but we don't try. We just do or we don't do. So where are you coming from? When you sit there and you say, oh, I'm creating this. Do you feel the anxiety in the pit of your stomach? Do you feel the anger? What do you feel? Well, then that'll tell you what state you're in. So then, if you know that creation, if you get into a beautiful state, well, look at that. Look at our nature. We draw from our memories, right? So if you have a memory that was, ooh, that was lovely. If you have that memory, go back to that memory and simply feel lovely. And then you say, okay, this is the state I want to be in. This right here. Just to feel lovely and say, okay, this is the state I want to be in. Now, who would you tell? How would you say it? How would you feel? Because you're in that state now. And so now that you're in that state, move from that state. But if you find that you're in a state of worry, anxiety, depression, how are you going to? Don't create from there. Don't create from there, because then you're creating from that state. And if you create from that state, that's what you will experience. So this is why he tells you, what would it be like if? And then people say, well, I'm just pretending then. I'm just faking it. No, you're not. You don't pretend and you don't fake it. You have a memory that made you feel good. Find that memory again and feel good. Go back to that memory as often as you can, because it's not the memory that you want, but the memory is only the trigger to get you to feel that way, because now that's the state. The state of, oh, this is nice and fulfilled. You've had something where you were satisfied before. You've experienced satisfaction. We all have. So you follow your nature, which is to go back to that memory, because that's what we always do. We go back to the memory. Like he said to you, when he was in his imagination and he was touching the railing and he could smell the salt and the green of the air on the sea. He grew up near the beach. He knows exactly what the sea smells like because he can remember it. And he remembers what leaving Barbados feels like. Well, I know exactly. As soon as I said that to you, I just felt my heart go. Oh. And I saw myself look out the airplane window, and there was my tiny island getting smaller and smaller as the plane left it. You see, learn your nature. Why? So that nobody can come along and say, well, I have the key to riches and immortality. Why don't you pay me $20,000 and I'll coach you how to do it? Don't let a dollar make you a fool, because that is part of human nature. Part of human nature, we like a good underdog story, right? So we are stirred to action by the stories we hear. That's your nature. We are stirred to action by the stories we hear and by the stories we tell. That's why he says, generate a scene. You don't have to go out there and rewrite a whole book. No, go back into your memories. Where have you felt any kind of satisfaction? Can you go back? I remember vividly, I was the smallest in my class, right? But I was in the back row in the back because, they had the little risers for choir. Technically speaking, I should have been in the front because I'm the smallest. But now I was playing the cymbals, right? So I remember vividly going up on that stage and everybody lining up on the risers. And then I couldn't see the audience because they were coming from our school pageant. This is when I was in primary school. And the song, Morning Has Broken, right? So you know how it starts? Crash the cymbals, and there was me. And that's all anybody heard was that cymbal right there. And they applauded for me. And they laughed mother at her with me, because who cares at this point? It was, I wasn't seen, but I was heard. Right? So I will go back to that memory because of how it made me feel. I was appreciated by the audience. This is what I'm trying to tell you. He's saying to you, do the things that come naturally. Do it and use your nature. So how is he insane? He's not telling you to pretend, because that's how you'll drive yourself mad. You don't pretend. You don't pretend. You make believe. Those are not the same things. Pretending. But to make believe, you are convincing yourself now, you know what, this is what I do naturally. And here's the conversation I would have. And you begin to rehearse it. And the more you rehearse it, the more confident you get. The more bold you become. You find out that when you leave your house, look at how bold you are. And all you did was tell yourself a bold thing. Anyway, seeing that y'all don't have any questions, I don't even know if I made my point. But understand your nature. Just like Joseph Murphy. If you're going to be the best compound chemist, you better know what happens if you mix boron or borax with something, or this with that, or that with the next. You better know what you're doing. So you have to know the nature of a thing in order to get the best result. So in order to know how the mind works, learn its nature. It likes habit. Well, that's the brain. And then you will begin to discover that there's something that powers the brain. And that, my friends, is the part of us that cannot be hidden. That's what I'm trying to say to you today. So it doesn't matter whether Esther Hicks says what she says, or Joseph Murphy says what he says, or no, I'm not here to sell you on a program. I'm telling you to learn your nature, because let me tell you something. Linda. A lot of effort and energy went in to knowing your nature so that they can get the most out of you. Who's they? Marketing 101. All the people that get you to do things. But learn your nature. Learn the law so you can get the best out of this thing called life. That is what we do. So what do? We learn our nature. We learn the law. And we apply the law to our nature. Why? To bring about your best possible living experience. I trust that made some sense today. Oracle Treehouse on. You get those errands done, honey. And a little bit, he's been sitting here rather quietly. He has been. I think he falls asleep. And then I talk to him, or I'm talking in the space, he falls asleep. But as long as it made sense to you, because if you think about it, what does the algorithm do? The algorithm learns your nature so it can do what? Make better suggestions to you. So if the algorithm knows your nature and you don't, who has the power? The algorithm. So who's programming the algorithm? See? Ruby! Happy New Year, Ruby! It is so good to see you. It really is. Yes, it is. I've missed you, Miss Ruby. But I trust that that makes sense today, because people are so disappointed. Oh, but I did everything Neville said. I did everything Florence Scoble-Shinn said. I did everything they said. And I'm like, it's only because of that one scripture, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of self. Know your nature. What do you think it means? Know yourself and you will know God. Because when you know yourself, you'll begin to recognize that there's an indwelling spirit within your being. But you see, we say words like God, and we say things like, oh, the universe is against me. The universe is a created thing. You and I are created things. How can one created thing be against another? It's not against you. It feels like it's against you because you don't know your nature. And you don't know the law, and you don't know how to apply the law to your nature. So what is it that you want to manifest? And then I will close. Step one, what do you want? What do you want? If you're in a position to write, go ahead and do so. You're just answering questions. So once you've written down what it is that you want, because you're making it, now create a short scene. Go back into your memories. Have you ever accomplished anything? Were you ever praised for something? Did you ever feel good about what's that memory that you can conjure up that bring you back? Cyber, I'm gonna answer that question in a minute. Hold on, Cyber. So in that short scene, who would you tell? Right? Because remember how you feel. Get into the state now. How do you feel? Bring that memory up, because I'm going to go back to the crash of the cymbal. For me, as I accept my Pulitzer Prize, for me, like, I don't know, I'm just using a word. But do you know what I'm saying? Go back to that memory, because that memory now, you're in the state, because you're remembering how you were. You're looking at yourself from that state. Yeah, from the end. Hello. So now that you've got that short scene, who would you tell? You can tell them from that. You've already done all your scenes. So you name what you want to create, and you create the scene that confirms it. You draw from a memory that has a very similar sensation to it, and you put yourself there, because you'll begin to recognize if you're coming from a place of, don't create from there. That's why Esther Hicks can say, reach for the thought that feels better, because you're changing states. What are you doing actually by way of law here? You're raising the vibration. And I know some of us don't like that word, but to raise the vibration, the rate at which it is moving and how it makes you feel, that's what you're doing. So the frequency, that's what you're doing. So you turn on your favorite song. I hope it's just you, Cyber. Don't say that. But do you know what I mean? If there's a favorite song that puts you in that state, well, then do that. Right? And once you've created that scene and you've played it over, bedtime, and morning. Now, what are you doing? You're not pretending that it's already happened. You're preparing yourself, because you've accepted it. So now you're just, how are you going to have that phone call? Right? That's all you're doing. It is done. And anytime you want to feel discouraged, like, oh, why is it not here yet? Go back to that scene and remind yourself, you know what? things grow. And you already know that it is done. And you don't fuss, you don't fret, you don't get angry, because now you've taken yourself from the state you want to be in. Oh no! Is my connection really that bad? Well, that's bad. I don't like that. Where is Marjorie? Is it? Okay, good. I'm glad. So I trust that that makes sense to you. And Cyber, let me address your question. Yes, Lil Bit is a boy. Well, you see, what had happened was silkies are very difficult sometimes to sex, like to name their sex, because they don't show you right away, because they take a really long time to mature. Right? They take a long time to mature. So last week, all of the girls that were hatched in the batch that he's a part of, they started to lay eggs, but he started to crow. So every morning he crows at about 7:40 a.m. 7:40 a.m. And so most people don't flip their chickens over to find out if it's a boy or a girl. The one you find sitting on the egg is clearly the girl, because a rooster is not gonna, they don't necessarily sit on them. They don't brood like that. They're too busy strutting their stuff. So he's a boy. Itty bitty is a boy. Itty bitty is asleep. I was gonna go pick him up, but I'm like, let that baby sleep. Let him rest. Yeah, he's fast asleep. He is. Ruby says the UK is terrible right now. What you got going on in the UK? Cyber says, oh, you're not getting free eggs? Well, at least you're getting a free alarm clock. Oh, listen, I don't even know how I ended up loving this chicken. I don't know, but I just love him because he's who he is. He is what he is. He's my boy. He's a little chicken. And oh, you're awake? Oh, mama was too loud for you. See, he's really a good boy. And so it's just the way it is. But I trust today made some sense for you guys. Yeah, I trust that today made some sense for you guys, and to stop being desperate. You don't have to be desperate. That is only a habit. It is only a habitual state that we were convinced that if we were desperate times called for desperate measures. No thanks. Oh, it's cold there, Ruby? Well, honey, it's kind of cold here too, but we haven't really had, let me see if I can tell you what your temperature is. What is my temperature? It is 1 degree. 1 degree Celsius today. That's what it is. So yeah. 1 degree. And we haven't really had any snow. So yeah. But take your time and always identify your state. Because you'll if you are honest, you see, that's what the law doesn't force you, but the law encourages self-honesty. Because where are you now? What are you doing? You know exactly what that feels like. So anyhow, that's all I wanted to say today. I trust that it made sense to you. If not, slide into my DMs. Also, check out the link in my Linktree and pre-order your Oracle cards today. Pre-order your Oracle cards. They're at the printer right now. We're just going through the, the proofs. So they're doing all of that part. So pre-order, because I only ordered 1,000 decks. So how many decks are left? $907, if my math serves me correct. That's how much is left. So order yours today, and when they come in, I will be shipping them out, and the price already includes shipping. So Canadians, if you're Canadian and you see the price, because translated it's $43 Canadian. So Canadians, message me, because they're just $30 for the deck of Oracle cards. So, oh, Ruby, in my Patreon, there's a store in my Patreon. So in the link under the description of this video, you will see Linktree. At the very top of my Linktree, you will see Patreon store, and you will see to click on there to order. And that way I will have your email address, right? And so when they come in, I'll be sending out an email, and you will respond to me and give me your mailing address so I can send it out to you, right? So that's how we order them. So yeah, I just heard back from the printer this morning, because it was a new year, and he says, okay, we're going to proof. And so I will have something to look at soon. But I figured if we pre-order, then I will know, because here's the goal. All 1,000 are gone. Your name is on one of those decks, period. And as I said, what those cards do is you pull one every day. You will learn the law every day. Not just learn it, but you will apply it every day. Because it keeps you in the practice. It keeps you in the habit of doing things. It does. You can't go wrong with them. So holla at your girl, pre-order your deck. I'm aiming really for February, but it just depends on printing and how many people order. So that's why I say get your orders in, and yeah, as soon as they are hot off the press, because then they get delivered to me and I will ship them out to everybody who's ordered them. Yes. And that means, because I can do that, I wonder, I will do something special. I don't know what yet, but I'll do something special for the people who pre-order. Yeah. Anywho, I love you all. If you have any questions, definitely, you know how to reach me. Always go to my Linktree, because it's always going to be in the description of the video. And you can email me through there. You can find me on Patreon through there. I'll have the next link for chapter 8 for law school coming up shortly. So yes, let me know. Peace out, everybody. Love you all. I will see you tonight for our Neville Goddard lecture. I will see you tonight. All right. Much love to you all. And itty bitty, do you want to say bye too? Okay, wait a minute. Hey, wait a minute. Stop. See, the good people want to say, see you later, itty bitty. See you later. That's what they want to say to you, my handsome boy. That's what it is. See, say bye, everybody. Oh, now you quiet. You guys are awesome. You say bye. There you go, sweet boy. What a good boy you are. Yes, I know. Hell, Yayla. Yayla, I still have your number. I'll send you a message, because we haven't actually talked in a bit, but I'll send you a message, love. Yes. All right, everybody. little bit, and I say we'll see you tonight at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our Neville Goddard lecture. Yeah. Which one are we reading tonight? Your Supreme Dominion. Ooh. Yes, I'm looking forward to that. Oh, wow. Excellent, Miss Ruby. Excellent. All right, everyone. Tonight, 8:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we shall read Your Supreme Dominion, Neville Goddard lecture. I'll see you then. Much love.